On August 29, 2015, Ashley Callingbull was crowned Mrs. Universe. She is a member of the Enoch Cree Nation and the first Aboriginal woman to win the title. From the onset of the pageant, she was committed to creating social change for both women and Aboriginals.
On the first day she was crowned Mrs. Universe, Ashley challenged all First Nation people to vote in the federal election, stating that we are in desperate need of a new Prime Minister. She further commented on how Aboriginal people are often seen as terrorists and urged her people to fight for their rights.
As a result, Ashley received several hateful comments via her Facebook page, including sexist remarks such as, "If the pretty girl says so, it must be so," and racist judgments such as, "It seems that she has been trained well in the victim mentality that she was raised up in." Many of these criticisms did not engage her political viewpoints, but instead attacked her identity.
Reading these comments made us wonder how and why these attitudes towards women and Aboriginals still exist. How can the legacies of historical globalization in Canada help us to interpret the negative responses to Ashley Callingbull's call for political action?
Several people directed their negative comments towards Aboriginals in general and expressed extremely racist and ignorant opinions on what motivated her to have a political voice. She was called a traitor for encouraging others to bite the hand that feeds them. Others stated that Aboriginals were never forced to assimilate and are responsible for the problems they currently face. So where do these ideas come from?
After Europeans began to settle in what is now Canada, relationships with the Native communities flourished. Europeans initially relied on the Aboriginals for survival. The fur trade began as a mutually beneficial endeavor. However, as settlers expanded west, the relationship changed to one of imperialistic oppression. Several treaties were signed, and these relationships were eventually exploited and abused by the Europeans.
As a result of this colonial narrative, we now view history through an imperialistic lens. Many stereotypes that people believe in today are perpetuated by the belief that Europeans are better than Aboriginal people. The statement that Aboriginals bite the hand that feeds them demonstrates these imperialistic values are still embedded in society today.
Contrary to at least one person seems to believe, assimilation actually did occur in Canada. Residential schools aimed to kill the Indian in the child by eliminating Aboriginal culture and forcing them to adhere to European ideals. The systematic abuse experienced by these children has led to profound societal implications that have continued throughout several generations.
When people assume that assimilation didn't happen or that it wasn't that bad, they fail to understand the impacts of imperialism on a society. Often, Aboriginals are blamed for high rates of alcohol abuse, drug abuse, suicide rates, and domestic violence. These stereotypes are what inform opinions instead of an understanding of historical globalization. The Facebook comments directed at Ashley demonstrate the lack of knowledge about Canada's past.
Recently, the Canadian government, led by Stephen Harper, completed the Truth and Reconciliation Report and apologized for their role in the residential school system. However, just because Stephen Harper apologized does not mean that Canadians can wash their hands of the issue Aboriginal people face today.
It is important to note that not only is Ashley an Aboriginal, but she's an Aboriginal woman, which means some people feel like they have more reason to dismiss her. By looking at Canada's history, we can see where these deeply embedded ideas that women, and especially women and minorities, do not belong in politics.
Many of the comments attacked her because she was a woman. Statements like, "Please stick to your makeup and modeling," and "She should realize that she only won a beauty contest, not a brain contest or an election," signify the difficulties women in politics often face, a difficulty that is threefold for Aboriginal women.
In Canadian society, women who are in positions of power are often judged on their appearance before their intelligence. There is an idea that women cannot be pretty and smart. There is an idea that women cannot have intelligence without being masculine and unfeminine. So again, we ask, where do these ideas come from?
The idea of separate spheres is a long-established belief that women and men have different natural roles to play in and out of the house. This belief was embedded in society during the Victorian era. Much of the male-dominated sphere existed in the public and included work and politics. The female sphere was focused solely on their home.
These separate roles were resisted after women entered the workforce during the First World War. The global impacts of going to war allowed women to challenge the ideal of where a good woman belongs. Women were eager to participate in the public sphere, but were expected to return to their proper place in the home once the war was over.
The second wave of feminism that began in the 1960s is often viewed as a radical movement, full of bra-burning, pants-wearing women with short haircuts who hate men. Brenda O'Neill argues that because of this extremism, many women today will not identify as a feminist because of the negative masculine connotations associated with the term that have continued over time.
While many women gained their right to vote in the first wave of feminism in 1917, Aboriginal women did not receive this right until 1960. This, coupled with the impacts of historical globalization on Aboriginal communities, leads to a lower involvement of Aboriginal women in politics. As a result, the political opinions of Aboriginal women are often dismissed.
Despite being able to vote, the voices of Aboriginal women in politics have generally been ignored. Since the 1980s, these women have attempted to gain attention for the disproportionate amount of missing and murdered Aboriginal women in Canada. However, they were often disregarded by the Canadian government for issues deemed more pertinent. Only recently has this issue come to the forefront of politics.
The legacies of historical globalization in Canada led to several minority groups being segregated, stigmatized, and oppressed. Although Canada has made progress in the equality of human rights, we still see patriarchal imprints on our society today. Ashley Callingbull's call for political action has provided an opportunity to address these issues and understand where these ideas come from.